Hello everyone, welcome back to Kirklees Guitar School. Today we discuss Epiphone versus Gibson, power chords, and a day in the life of the guitar tutor. Stick around, it's going to be a good one. Hello everyone, welcome back to Kirklees Guitar School Podcast Episode 10. I'm joined with my co-host, Mr. George Loveridge. How you doing, George?
I'm good, Mr. James Coonell. Number 10.
Number 10, we made it.
Double figures.
Do you know, there's some sort of crazy stat that I'm paraphrasing. I will, if I remember, I'll put it in while I'm editing. It's something crazy like 95% of podcasts don't make it to episode 10.
All right. Well, there we
So
go.
we survived.
We've got plans for more, so
Yeah,
we'll keep going.
absolutely. Yeah, and we've just finished plotting out Series 2 as well,
We have,
which is going to be...
we don't know when it's going to happen, but we're thinking.
No, but we're thinking about it, so that's cool. So has this week been a rock or a roll?
Last week was a roll. This week's a rock. It's flipped. It's nice. So last week I mentioned that my home build telly, wasn't playing quite right. It's because the neck plate had bowed. So I ordered a new one. Genuine Fender one, all of £14. I was amazed. And it's got a big F in the back of it. And I sent you a picture of it, and it was Humpty Dumpty.
I'll put that on the screen.
If you can get it up, yeah.
I've
put a piece together for Gear News. It'll go live on Saturday, so before this podcast. But yeah, it was quite. If you put the two plates next to each other, one was humped and one was flat. So I put the new one on, and it plays Ace again. Quick intonation whip up to adjust for it. There's a few farty notes because the fretboard isn't a real custom shop Fender. But yeah, I'm really happy to get that back on the road. And then Easter sessions this week, limited one-to-one lessons, but we've been doing different stuff. Like with one student, we did a sort of songwriting session where I asked him to pick a key. We went through the scale, found the notes, and I said, right, find some chords that work well. So that was really nice. So yeah, a good week this time. What about you?
Yeah, this because we're on the first week of the Easter break. I've taught quite a few lessons this week, but I've also had like a lot of sort of 2 and 3 hour kind of gaps in my diary that I've been filling with the online stuff or other things that I'm working on. But this week's all been sort of about things for the future. You know,
You're
things
very
that
much
we've
a
got in the
visionary.
yeah. It's just executing it. I've got all the ideas. It's just getting it all onto out into the sphere is tricky. So yeah, I've been working on a lot of kind of long term stuff. What's happening with Kirklees Guitar School? What's happening with the podcast? One thing or another. And then I've got some time off next week. So cool. You know when you've got to do 2 weeks worth of things in 1 week so that you can have a week off. It's one of those kind of weeks, but not complaining. You know,
Yeah, cool.
I've been down a Jimi Hendrix rabbit hole this week.
So you put on the group, well, you're doing Purple Haze for a lesson.
Yeah, and I think it'll come out before episode 10 does.
This one, yeah.
Episode 10 does, but I've just literally finished transcribing the solo, so I've got the second half of the song to do, which I'm hoping to get done today or tomorrow and filmed before I shut up shop for Friday.
Yeah.
I'm also working on Jolene at the minute. I've been
Dolly?
Yeah, I've been practicing Jolene, and I spent an hour practicing the first bar yesterday.
Yeah, because I gig that, but I just play block chords. I don't do the dun 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 dun. I don't do the proper finger picking part.
I learned how to play it years ago, and then I've come back to it. And when you're teaching online, you are really under the microscope, and it's got to be right. So I went back through it, and I'm like, oh, there's an extra note, and I've missed it. And my muscle memory on that song is so locked in. It took me an hour to get out of it, basically. And I'm not going to embarrass myself and try and play it on camera because I still need to practice it quite a little bit more. So that's what I've been on with this week. What's on the agenda for today's podcast,
So
George?
today's set list, our technical focus this week, we're looking at power chords. So everyone uses them, or everyone should use them, but what's the mechanics behind them? What's going on in the background? And if you've never used them before, we'll show you how to use them. You might not have heard of them before, which is a really exciting thing. We're then looking towards tone talk, and we're comparing Epiphone versus Gibson. Now, think of that as Squire to Fender, if you're that way inclined. Epiphone, the budget end of the spectrum, and then Gibson, the top end of the spectrum.
Sort of more premium, and I want to sort of have that open discussion as, without being rude, you can buy half a dozen of them, maybe even 10 on the second-hand market for one of these. Is it 10 times better? That's what we're going to
That's what we're and it's not to put you off. I mean, your 335, for instance, Epiphone, it's not a bad guitar whatsoever.
Excellent guitar.
Yeah. Then we're going neck deep, of course. We like going neck deep. We're looking at the day in the life of a guitar tutor, because this is episode 10. It's a little bit special. Didn't bring my confetti cannon. But some people in the Facebook group were asking us to talk about our day as a guitar tutor. So we're not exactly going into our home lives, but we're going to talk about what happens when we rock up at the studio. because we're not just an online platform. We do have things going on in person as well. We've then got Pick Our Brains. We're looking at a fantasy rig, sort of desert island discs, but for guitars. What would, money no object, what would you build? What would you have in your studio?
I've got some thoughts.
Yeah, I know you would do. And then James is going to recap Pretty Woman, last week's Riff of the Riff.
Yeah.
Riff of the Riff. I keep saying that. Riff of the Week. And then I've got a new Riff of the Week, which I will disclose later.
Yeah, George hasn't told me what that is, so I'm as eager as
Don't
you
get
guys
too
are
excited,
to,
but
you've built up this.
I am.
You've built up this hype now, George. I'm expecting.
Watching 25 minutes time, I'll forget what it is.
Very good. Right then. So power chords.
Take it away.
Okay. Well, what is a power chord? Now, a power chord is, think of it as a more direct approach to playing regular open chords, cowboy chords. So let me just fill a little bit of preamble that puts it all in context. The cowboy chords that we learn to start with. Now, I call them cowboy chords. Cowboy chords, C, G, D, F, etc. Those are what we call triads.
Yep.
Now, triads have 3 notes in them.
Hence the term triad.
Yes. Now, I don't need you to write these down and sort of memorize them. I just want you to understand the concept. Like a C chord has a C, an E, and a G in it. An A has an A, a C sharp, and an E in it. Now, those 3 chords, the first note, so let's take C, E, and G.
Nice and easy one, yeah.
C is what we call your root. That's the head of the head of the table. That's the head of the family. What we call the root. A C chord starts with a C, and the root is a C.
That's every chord as well.
Every chord
will always have a root in it.
An A chord, the root's an A. A B chord, the root's a B.
Yep.
The middle one is what we call the third. We'll get into that in a little bit of why we call it the third. But that note in the middle of the chord tells you whether it's major or minor. That makes the chord sound happy or sad. A C major sounds like this. A C minor. And all I've done is change that note in the middle.
Yep.
So you've got your root as the first, your third, which makes it sound happy or sad, and then you've got what we call your fifth. Now, your fifth is the third and final note in that triad, which completes the package. Now, the fifth doesn't make it sound happy or sad. It just adds a little bit of bulk.
It does, and we refer to that as your perfect fifth because it doesn't move.
Hallelujah by Leonard Cohen.
Yeah.
It goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, and the major lift. He's talking about the note. These are called intervals and intervallics, right? So all that to say, a regular cowboy chord has a root, a third, and a fifth in it. A power chord takes away the middle note. It takes away the third. And instead of playing a C chord and it's sounding all major and happy or minor and sad.
Just the C and cut out the middleman.
Yeah. It's a really direct way of playing guitar, and it's really common among rock guitar players, and it kind of bolted into the Les Paul idea today. Have you anything else to add to that?
Oh, loads. But I think it's funny. We look at blues, and it just so happens that a load of blues players in the 40s and 50s were using XYZ techniques, and we take that as blues. What if pop songs were made of power chords? Because, I think, the way I describe it to students, if you look at the Sex Pistols, for example, they're drugged up, fueled up on God knows what. They're a pretty lousy guitarist because they've only been playing 2 years and they're suddenly top of the world. Mm-hmm. Power chords are quite easy to play. That's my justification for it, I think, way back when.
Yeah.
But it's stylistic as well, as we said.
It's stylistic, and when you're playing with a lot of distortion, if I played a fictitious chord progression,
sounds right.
It'd be okay for punk, but if I did it as power chord. Now, because the third is removed, it doesn't matter if the chords are major or minor, and they're the same shape. Now, what are some examples that we can think of songs that are traditionally played with power chords, but can we show the audience what it'd sound like without?
Oh, God. We said yesterday when we were planning this that we'd be able to pick one from out of there. So you're saying we're wanting a song, typically power chords. Oh, let's go for Paranoid, because we've done that a lot on the show. So now Now, there's a delightful gentleman in the comments who pointed out we want to play it on the 12th string, not the 7th. The 12th fret, sorry, not the 7th. Paranoid typically would be E to D. Okay. Now, if I change that to E minor and D minor, it's still kind of there.
But it doesn't
have that chug. I mean, I can still chug it. That refers to rhythm. If I remove that minor third in our instance, just the 5th, still palm muting, still chugging, it's that minor third.
I sort of feel like it tightens everything up.
It does. There are appropriate applications. And then the main reason we're going through this is because as a player, when I was learning, if I was looking at a song, G, brilliant, C, brilliant, F sharp minor, nope, guitar goes back in the gig bag because that's a bar chord. Panic. But power chords, you can use that because, as we said, the third doesn't matter anymore, minor or major. So if I make, again, a fictitious chord progression, E major to F sharp minor to D, that sounds all right with the F sharp minor bar chord. But if I play it with a power chord, okay, it sounds a bit more aggressive, but you can still get away with it. It's a nice, what do we say, get out of jail free card?
Yeah, and you think of something like, I don't know, it's got that sort of but yeah, and we're not all power chords aren't exclusive to Black Sabbath, but it's just a really good.
Everyone knows it. Yeah,
it's a really good example of it. Okay, now I'm not going to play it all because it'll sound shit.
I've thought of another.
Go on.
Survivor. Now that actually sounds quite cool with the major, but
compared
it doesn't
to
do it. And there's some fifths in there to make it sound even bigger.
Yeah. So cliff notes of that before we move on.
Yes.
A power chord is a stripped down version of a cowboy chord that has one movable shape that we can move up and down the neck, and it retains the same shape. It's a great precursor to bar chords, and it's great for... It's not just a rock guitar thing, but it lends itself to playing with distortion really well. Could we show the audience a power chord before we move on?
Yeah, so let's go for C. It's just a nice way to start. Now I'm going to play this on the 3rd fret of the A string. Now, power chords are also a great way to learn your fretboard. I'm going to set 3rd fret on my A string with my index finger. That is our root, aforementioned root. First note of I predict to write that one. I'm then going to put the 5th. Now, where is the 5th? I'm going to go 2 down from my first finger. So I've gone down to the... 1 down, sorry. That's my octave. 1 down and 2 frets across. So my ring finger...
1 down, 1 string.
1 down, 1 string. Yeah, it's people listening as well. Down 1 string and 2 frets across. And that takes me to the 5th fret on my ring finger. And that is that 5th interval. So I'm 1st to my 5th. You can also play that in the octave on the E string, which would be the same principle, same idea. 8th fret is my root on the low E string. Down 1 string across 2 frets. Takes me to 10 on the A string.
Let us know in the comments whether that went in. It's a really big topic, but it's a really big part of learning to play kind of rock guitar. But if you want to learn how to play bar chords, power chords is a really good place to start because it introduces that idea of a movable shape. Yeah, the
final thing on that is your first finger is always driving. If you say, play me a power chord on the 8th fret, some people might put their ring finger on the 8th fret. It's your first finger that it dictates where you are. Just a final. Because I see that quite a lot in my lessons.
Okay, excellent. Fab. Right then, tone talk. Gibson versus Epiphone.
Yeah.
So the Gibson Les Paul is arguably one of the most... and next to the Stratocaster, probably joint with the Stratocaster, it's one of the most famous guitar shapes, and a lot of guitarists aspire to own a Gibson Les Paul. Famous guitar players that play Gibson Les Pauls, Slash, Joe Bonamassa, Jimmy Page,
Clapton,
Paul Kossoff, Peter Green, the list goes on and on and on and on. And the Gibson Les Paul, especially the vintage ones, are some of the most ludicrously priced vintage guitars on the market. So they've got a little bit of something. They've got a little bit of magic.
Yes. Well, look at Greenie. Gary Moore's. Well, Peter Green sold it to Gary Moore.
Yeah.
Who then eventually sold it to Kurt Hammett.
And I do
Is there someone in between?
That'll end up. No.
Still Kirk's still got it.
Yeah, and I do.
From Metallica.
And he's recently acquired another one as well. I can't remember off the top of my head. But yeah, they're vintage Les Pauls are making more money in appreciation than they are in the bank. So that's why rock stars are buying them. But what's so special about them? And can you get a little bit of that magic in the sort of Far Eastern made equivalents for a lot less money? And is it worth spending the cash?
Well, that's the thing. Over time, the materials that they use change. Yours is an 80s Les Paul?
Yes, 1982.
So the materials on that, i.e. what the neck's made of, what the body's made of, might differ over time, and that'll sort of, in the 50s, they might have used wood. But now, if you bought one off the shelf, brand new, made yesterday, it might use a different wood.
My understanding of the vast majority of Les Pauls, it's both mahogany neck and body.
Yep.
It's the quality that changes. It's as wood is the natural resource is processed, it gets graded into, grade A, B, C, D, etc. My understanding is the better quality stuff is saved
for the nice
stuff because they've got the budget to play with. Like a bog standard Gibson Les Paul at time of recording is around the circa £2,000 mark.
Yeah, so I was looking the other day.
It's not cheap.
Even a brand new Epiphone standard is still £800.
Is it really?
For the new, well, they've got a Gibson inspired by phone, but that's a different thing entirely.
Yeah.
But what are the stats, if you know them, on yours? And we'll sort of compare it to this and see what's what.
It weighs as much as a small car. It's very old.
So that's quality of wood, isn't it?
Yeah. Now, a hallmark of a good Les Paul is that it should weigh. There should be a coffee table's worth of mahogany. However, the best Les Paul I've ever played in my entire life
isn't that bad.
Is light as a feather. So it's horses for courses. The 80s, the late 70s and the early 80s, these guitars are renowned for being one of the heaviest objects in the universe. And I've kind of taken that on. Pro with this guitar, as opposed to a con, is yes, it was a lot of money, but because it's reached that point where it's old enough now. It's now become desirable because it's classed as vintage.
Yeah.
In a couple of years, this will be a 50-year-old guitar, won't it? Which is mental.
It is.
So I've spent a lot of money on this guitar, but it's already worth considerably more than I paid for it. And that's when you are spending a lot of money. You spend £10,000 on a car, the two bumps out of the forecourt, you lose £1,000 with each of those bumps, they say, don't you? Whereas I've not really experienced that with this. So when I buy old guitars, I'm looking to sort of lock my money into something. I know it's not a financial podcast,
definitely.
But it was a consideration when I bought the guitar.
Now, those of you who like to buy lots of guitars, don't go on eBay and buy knackered old guitars. You know who you are. But yeah, no, it's a nice piece of kit, is that?
But also, I know there's so many people on the internet go, oh, I'm not a brand snob. Oh, the name on the headstock doesn't mean anything. It does. It does to me. I'm going to be that person and say, I get a certain feeling when I open the case of this guitar compared to my Epiphone. I've got my Epiphone ES355 that's set over there. Absolutely glorious guitar.
Still
but I just don't feel the same about it.
Yeah.
I've always been the person that I will save and get the daddy of what something is.
Yeah, you've always been like that.
I will do without and save and really bide my time and get exactly what I want, and I won't cheap out on it because when I have done with those things, and I appreciate I'm in a really fortunate position to be able to do that. I don't. When I want something, I want that, and I get sort of hyper focused on that. I've had half a dozen Epiphones over the years. I was trying to think about it while I was driving over this morning. Do you remember the black?
You mentioned Tokai a few months
ago.
I
had a Tokai, but I had a black Les Paul, a matte black Les Paul. Do you remember that one?
No.
I had the Cream 3 pickup.
Remember
SG.
the cream one?
Yeah. Yep. So those were bought at the same time. I had a Thunderbird bass for a while. It's revolving door of equipment, but those were always placeholders. I always knew
You wanted a proper one.
I wanted to buy a Les Paul, and I wanted to buy one Les Paul, and this is, I know I've got use of a couple of them, but that's just circumstantial. But this guitar, every time I pick it up, it's instant Paul Kossoff, free, Yardbirds, the woman tone thing. It does exactly what it says on the tin.
Yeah.
I can get those tones out of something like that, but I don't feel like it's
not authentic. I think that's what you're looking for.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you? Because you sit on the other side of the fence.
I do.
You'll spend a fiver to save a quid, won't you?
Yeah, I quite like the idea of playing and using things that aren't quite where they should be, but making them convincible.
What sort of punching above the weight?
Yeah, someone commented about the white Strat that belongs to my partner. Said, "Is it a classic vibe? It sounds great. It's not very good." But I quite like, I'm hardly a virtuoso, but I think I can make a bad guitar sound okay.
Yeah, and there's something in that.
Yeah. So this guitar, now I think it's an unfair comparison because there's 30 years between these guitars.
Yes.
This is a 2013 Epiphone Les Paul standard. So this is, the next step up the ladder from this is a standard Gibson, I think.
Okay.
Would a studio come above a standard?
Yeah.
I'm not as clued up on my Gibsons as Epiphones.
So am I right to assume that's kind of of its time? That was kind of top of the range Epiphone.
Yeah, this is you buy an Epiphone. If you want a nice one, this is what you buy.
Right. Okay. Your next step up would be a Gibson Les Paul Studio.
Okay, so this one has a maple body, mahogany body, but then this one's got an Indian laurel fingerboard. So that's a cost-cutting thing straight away. Now visually, even though they're a bit old, they look kind of similar. The begins with a T, but I can't remember what the inlays are called.
Trapezoid.
Yeah, that's it.
I think the Americans
Trapezoid,
say
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Trapezoid.
Yeah.
The inlays look similar, apart from, yours are a bit more aged because they've had more sunlight on them. They're both... Now, a proper Gibson Les Paul will have a triple A maple flame top.
Well, no, they don't.
Do they not?
No, because I wouldn't describe the top of this guitar as being triple flame. I'll just get it so you can see it in this camera. I know we've got the lights in the studio, but there's not really a lot of flame in this top.
No,
is there?
no, fair dues, yeah. This one, there is more flame.
Now, what that'll be a selling point for that guitar. I'll be like, oh my God, it's the top of the range. Because what that guitar will be an upsell from a standard.
Yeah, if this was just red or, in sunburst or something, it's... Now, I went to look at these. We did a gig here at the school, and everyone was playing Les Pauls, and I had 300 quid in my pocket from that gig. Went, right, I'm going to a shop, and I'm buying a Les Paul. I just woke up and went, I'm doing it. And I played 6 that
Who
day.
paid you 300 quid for that gig? Because it wasn't me.
I had another gig that weekend as well.
Oh, right, okay. Fair enough. I was going to say, I don't want Andy to listen and go, hang on a minute.
No, I had 2 gigs that weekend, Saturday, Sunday. So it was Monday I went. Anyway, I played 6. I played a black one, a red one. I just went around various, and I just went on visuals, because you don't know until you pick it up. This one was the most resonant, unplugged.
What does that mean?
It means how it sounds, how it resonate. You can feel in the body the strings moving and how bright the strings are.
I describe it as you strum a guitar and you can feel it.
Yeah,
sort of
exactly.
like
I can feel it
rumbling
just on my chest.
On your body, on your chest, yeah.
But yeah, this is a nice one. It looks good. It's aged really interestingly. If I took this pickguard off, it would be blue. It's purple. It's obviously been sat in the sun a long time. But yeah, we've still got Grover tuners. That's a big selling point on these Gibson Epiphone guitars. You still get Grover tuners, which are the brand. And
Good
they do
quality
a good job.
tuners. Les Pauls are renowned for, got a reputation for not staying in tune.
Today, the G string.
It took us a minute to try and get them both to behave themselves before we put the cameras on, didn't we? But
It's this style of headstock, I think, typically. I've got a student with a Gretsch, similar to what I used to have, and he says, is it always the G string? I said, yep. Especially even when you've got a Bigsby as well.
Do you think it's the split?
I think it's when they off the nut, yeah, it moves off. And it's look at your 335. There's a long way from that peg up to that tuner. Usually when you restring your guitar, you've got about 3 or 4 inches of string left. With a Bigsby, you need all of that because it's such a long way. But the difference between this, I know this is 2013, but it's relatively modern. They haven't changed them that much. This has just got standard Epiphone pickups in. I don't know what the code name is. But a new one will have, I've written it down, would have Gibson USA Burst Booker pickups. That's what they're selling them as now. In a room, you might be able to hear a difference.
It's just a... when you create the same product again and again and again, it's like the iPhone, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to say it does more.
I got the iPhone 3 when they were relatively new, and it was a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And then the iPhone 4 came out, and it was a different shape, and it had a better camera, and it did this and it did that. So everyone went and bought that, and then the 5 and the 6 and the 7, and now we're
snowballs.
on what, the 16?
Yeah, 16's just come out.
My 12's just fine.
Yeah,
I don't need, you can only reinvent the wheel so many times.
Mm-hmm.
So try not to get too wrapped up in burst booker, this booker, that booker. They're all trying to recreate. These are called Tim Shaw pickups that are in this guitar. So in the late 70s, Gibson was bought out by another company. And they've got a bit of a reputation of late 70s Gibsons of not being very good, and that's because they went through a lot of cost-cutting exercises.
You see that throughout history, though,
well,
don't
to
you?
stop the business going under, basically. It happened with CBS and Fender in 1965. Okay. These pickups, in theory, are not as good as the ones that came before it in the mid to early 70s. I think they sound wicked. It's not the size of the nail, it's the hammer you hit it with, isn't it? It's that kind of... I absolutely adore this guitar, but I don't think, I can only play guitars with Tim Shaw pickups in now. It's
essentially, and
it's just a humbucker. We're talking
wire.
millimeters.
Yeah.
It's not that important.
But realistically, it comes down to, I mean, I wear Primark stuff because it's cheap and, it does the job. But essentially, it comes down to what's written up here on the headstock. This is a really nice guitar. I really enjoy playing it, and it's the best. I bought a Gretsch, which was twice the price of this, brand new, and it wasn't as nice as this 10-year-old. And I'd always been snobbish about Epiphone. But then you think Epiphone Casino, back in the 60s, that was a hot guitar.
Yeah.
John Lennon playing one of them on top of Apple's roof. That is a nice guitar. It wasn't seen, he's playing a budget Epiphone. It was a brand in itself.
Yeah, and I think Oasis kind of brought that sort of cool
Did Gallagher
factor
play
back.
an Epiphone
335?
No, was it a real
one? That one is a 1960 355.
Through a AC30 as well.
A Marshall and a Hiwatt.
Oh.
A Marshall and a WOM. Forget what. Anyway, that pedal show did a great video on it. But yeah, I don't think my guitar's 10 times better than yours. But also, I'm not mad about spending that extra money on it and having this to sort of play.
Well, we'll get onto that when we look at our fantasy rig, because we've both got ideas.
Yeah.
But as it's episode 10, it's a little bit special.
The way that I'd sort of conclude that, just before we jump on, is if you've got the money to spend, I would always... buy a Gibson.
Buy the best you can afford.
Buy the best you can afford.
Definitely.
But don't let that deter you from making that purchase if that's more in your
Well,
budget.
let's think. This was £360. And I actually found out they were actually worth about £500. So I tried to flog it for ages, but then started to like it too much. If I didn't like a Les Paul, because I'd never played a Les Paul before, I just liked...
I was quite surprised when you
woke
brought
up.
that in,
I've always been a Fender guy. I just liked the look of it, and I thought, you know what, if I don't like it, it's £360. Don't get me wrong. That's a couple of food shops. It's half of my mortgage payment, but it's not horrendous. If I'd spent £2,200 on a brand new studio, I'd be mortified if I didn't like it.
See, I'm changing my opinions on how to buy a guitar now. My advice was always go to the shop, go try a load, We live in this world now where multiple packages from multiple couriers arrive at us houses every day, and it's easier than ever to have things delivered to you now. And the returns policies are really great and one thing or another. If you're buying a sub-£1,000 guitar, personally, if I'm buying a sub-£1,000 guitar, I'll just have it delivered to the house.
I was about to say, if I had a couple of grand saved up, excuse me, for an expensive guitar, I would go second hand and I would play it first and pick it up.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, my Harley Benton 12-string, it was £260. So I'll buy that online. Because even though it's a nice guitar, I think it should be worth more. I'm not.
Yeah, but go to Germany to pick it up.
No, I'm not going to Germany. But if let's say £2,000's the budget, like sort of similar money to that, you want to go and headhunt it.
I didn't. I had this guitar delivered, but it was in Farnham,
All right, so
Guitar Village in Farnham, and it was one of those. It's like, do I sacrifice a day's wage to go down and potentially not like it, or do I pay the courier 30 quid to ship it, and I can send it back if I don't like it? Now, that was a decision that was a purely money-based decision. I'd make more money sat here working and have it brought to me rather than spend 6 hours in traffic jams.
Yeah.
But also, I know as soon as I pick a guitar up whether I like it or not.
Yeah, I would. No, I disagree with that.
Do you? Right.
I think you can warm to it. I think you can, it's like when you buy a new car. You're like, oh, it's great, but actually, I don't like. It's fine.
Right.
You do love it. Tell yourself you love it. And
yeah.
this instantly, I was like, wow, these pickups sound great. The neck's lovely and glossy. I've always wanted a lacquered neck on a guitar. That's just something I like and aspire to have. But then there's some things I just didn't want. My dark blue telly, first 2 or 3 years I had that. Yes, I was young. I didn't know left from right when it came to guitars. Didn't really like it. Like, I'm not ungrateful for this gift, but I'm not. Now I love it.
Yeah, and I fall out with guitars and sort of
Oh, yeah.
the SG sort of works on a sort of 3 or 4 week rotation. It's currently in favour at the minute.
Okay.
Give it a couple of weeks and it'll go back in the case. And
Well, I must admit, this featured in episode 1, hasn't been out of the case since. And
Right.
that was not 10 weeks ago. We're 3 weeks ahead. That was 13 weeks ago. This literally went in the case in here, back in the spare room, and it hasn't been out since until this morning. Ouch. But there we go.
On that note, shall we go into our neck deep portion of the podcast?
Yeah, so when you rock up at the Kirklees Guitar School in Huddersfield, what do you do?
I feel like that's a loaded question because
Okay.
I run the business. I am the caretaker, the toilet cleaner, the accountant. It's there's a million and
Oh, yeah, my
one
bin's
jobs
full,
that
by
I
the
have
way.
to- oh, right, exactly. Yeah. So that's what I'm
well,
doing
let's
this
say
afternoon.
you run a lot of groups here, which have been revolutionary for the school.
We are absolutely cooking on gas with our groups. They have been so successful. So I've taught locally in the area for, aside from the couple of years that I went to uni and came back, but I've taught from being, how old were I?
16.
16, when I used to go to George's house and teach him how to play guitar. The evolution of Kirklees Guitar School started from going to people's houses, then walking to people's houses in the village that we both grew up in.
Mm-hmm.
Then I passed my driving test, and then I'd drive to people's houses, putting adverts on Gumtree. Remember? That was a thing. Found a couple of clients, got to the point where I couldn't physically serve any more people, so I left my day job, got a few more. Got to the point where I was sick of things falling off my car, so I got the studio, we built the studio up, and now we're here. Now, the business has such a good reputation locally now.
It's nice. When people ask for guitar tutors in local Facebook groups, our name comes up more often than not.
But I think that's happened naturally because of the organic way that Kirklees Guitar School's grown.
Yeah.
We are absolutely crackers about guitars here.
Mm-hmm.
And it really shows. And everybody that comes, in my opinion, I mean, let us know in the comments if you disagree, but I'd be very surprised. That enthusiasm gets sort of radiated to everybody else in school. So I made a decision last year that we need to try and serve more people locally because I just simply can't give any more hours.
There's only so much time in the day. Yeah.
And as the online portion of the business has taken off, that's eating up even more time. So I came up with the idea. It's a very I got it from American music, talking to American music tutors, the idea of group lessons. Now, there's this sort of this misconception that group lessons are, you don't get as good quality teaching, you don't get as much out of it, and you're essentially just all fighting with each other to sort of be heard. Now, I went into this with a couple of groups, and I contacted a couple of good students of the school. You know, you say good students, people who have been part of the furniture for a while, and said, "Look, I'm thinking about doing this. Can we book some sessions in free of charge? And how? And just so I can kind of work out.
Does it work?
How does it work? Yeah." And it did. It was phenomenal. Now, I think group lessons only work if the person that's delivering the lesson can take command of the room, has a plan, has a structure, and has the resources ready to go. If you're fumbling around looking for what to do,
it's valuable time.
As they're coming through the door and you're like, oh, what are we going to do today? That's not good enough for us here. It's not good enough at all. And I see in the future group lessons being our kind of main offering. You know, electric guitarists, it sounds like 6 electric guitarists in a room all thumping away on different parts of Wind Cries Mary all at the same time sounds like murder. Well, we invested, but that's the thing. It's like if you're willing to invest the money in the equipment,
you'll see the results.
That's it. We got half a dozen pairs of the Katana earphones, and that's you as a customer for Kirklees Guitar School. You have those resources and that equipment for you guys to use. We've just had a massive TV mounted on the wall in there, haven't we? So that's
an understatement. It's bigger than this panel behind us.
Not quite. It's nearly. It's nearly
85.
85. Thank you, Nigel, for helping us put that up. I don't think I'd have got it on the wall without you.
No.
Um,
Well, I had a student come up when you were putting the recycling away. He went, "That's a big TV." I said, "Oh, have you seen it?" He went, "No, I've just seen the box."
Oh yeah, he saw me sort of try to square. You know when you've got a box for a big appliance, and rather than cutting it up, you just try and sort of fold it into the I'm just kicking it into the back of the Land Rover, and it all went in, but then at the tip they were like, "What have you bought?"
Yeah.
You know? So all that to say, group lessons have been a massive part of our business, and it's changed my teaching completely. So I still have my one-to-one clients that I see, but nowhere near as many as I used to do. And I tend to teach an afternoon, a late afternoon, and an evening class. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Yeah.
And I don't really know what happens at a class. You come in, you've got a predetermined set of things to do. During the day, I'm running the business, uploading videos, editing stuff, one thing or another. I'm not really quite sure where to go.
No, that's fine.
George,
that's
I went
fine.
on a massive ramble there.
Right.
But groups, we're still working out groups, but it is going to be a massive part of his business moving forward. And it just means that we can, because there's no more hours that we can give to people. So it's a way of making it more economical.
Definitely.
You know, it's cheaper for you guys to come and see us, but you also get more time with us as well. And if you're willing to make that compromise, I know the people that have made the jump from one-to-ones to groups have been really, really, really grateful for what they've got, because they're essentially getting more for less money.
Yeah.
And it's good for us because we're making more money in less time because we can deliver the same lesson to 5 people at the same time, you know? So what does your day look like?
So here at KGS, I teach Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. So I'm not here on Thursday. Started off 4 years ago now, which is nuts.
4 years?
Yeah, 2021.
Okay.
Started off on a Tuesday with 4 students. So, oh my God, 2 hours. Whew. But now, on a Monday, I'll teach from 2 until 8:15. Tuesday, I'll teach from 3 until 8:15, and so on and so on and so on. It is 99% one-to-one lessons, where it's just me and the student. And then on a Wednesday, I help run MOW, Mondays on Wednesday. It's our band that we've had for about a year now, getting ready for our gigs. And otherwise, just one-to-one sessions. So what does my day look like? Well, in the mornings, I write for gearnews.com. A few of you have seen some of my articles, whether it's guitar techniques or new products. Gets to lunchtime, I turn around and come here. I will then spend an hour just getting all my resources ready for lessons. Like you said, student isn't walking in the door and I'm saying, right, what do you want to do today? I know, because I like to make notes. I'm quite old-fashioned. I'll make notes on last week's lesson, so when I arrive this week, I can see, right, Summer 69 was at 75%. Can we try it at 80? Oh, they need that arpeggio lick there, so I'll tab that out. A lot of students have a bit of a, not a trade secret, but students say, oh, can we have a look at Wishing Well, like you're doing, for instance? And I'll say, yeah, I'll get that tabbed out in the week. I ain't touching that riff in the week. It's the hour before the lesson where I'll get that tabbed out. So I always like to be prepared, because that 30 minutes isn't for me to make resources. That's the way I view it. I view it that 30 minutes that student is paying for is their tuition and for them to play. Now, I'd say most of my lessons are totally different, all of them. Few students were doing improv. Few were just building initial chord skills. But it's almost like a doctor's surgery. Everyone's coming in with a different problem, and I really like that. It's constantly changing.
Do you feel like when you're sort of locking up the studio at the back end of the day, do you ever sort of do that sort of drive or walk home where you're just like, yeah, I've definitely sort of done something today.
Yeah,
I've done something positive
now,
today.
Now more than ever, really, because it's so varied. And you see people, they come in and they go, oh, work's been a nightmare, haven't got any child support. And then they play Maria Blondie at full speed and they go, yeah. And you can see
it's their little win
see in
for
their
the
body
day.
language. And there's nothing better for us as guitarists just sitting and strumming through a song. You know, when we gig it, it's more serious. But at home, it's such a nice way to relax. It's like going out on a drive. Open road, nothing. So yeah, it's nice to make a difference. But that's my day at KGS.
Yeah, and I think as well, for those of you that have lessons outside of the KGS sphere, if you're watching a little bit further away than Huddersfield, since I set the business up. So how many faculty have we got now? Is it 7?
Yeah, they're set on MMS. Yeah, 7.
Yeah, there's 7 of us. Soon to be 8,
Ooh.
but that'll be.
I'll have the middle seat in the van.
Later. I think it's really important that your guitar teacher doesn't overplay in the lesson. Like you said,
yeah.
you're there to get the best out of the student. If they're trying to play Blondie or name a 3-chord song, and the teacher's, oh yeah, that's great, yeah, really enjoyed that, yeah, that's cool. Look at this that I learned this week. This is amazing. There's a fine line. And I say this in the sort of training that I do for the tutors at the school, the new people that join us. There's a fine line between sort of talking shop and overindulging.
So that's something I've always really struggled with as a tutor. I don't want to be... Now, people come here for expert advice. We are in that position. But I don't like sitting there going, yeah, we're going G, D, A, and someone's going G... I find not uncomfortable. Uncomfortable is the wrong word, but I don't like looking like, oh, look how easy this is, and I'm not about that because everyone's in the same position.
If anybody knows anything about what we do here online at KGS, we will never tell you this is easy because it's not.
Oh no, it takes years. I look at students I've had for a year, and they say, "How am I doing?" I think I'm awful. Says X student. I go, no. It took me 3-4 years to play something like Brown Eyed Girl at 100% with a down up strumming pattern, and we're getting students doing it in a year. I think that's nuts.
We're definitely getting quicker, aren't we?
Yeah, no,
we're getting
don't get me wrong, there will be students who Smoke on the Water 6 years down the line is still hell. But that's fine. As long as you still enjoy it,
there's no one size fits all, is there?
No.
Maybe that's a topic for a future episode.
How to learn guitar.
Well, just a timeline, a reasonable timeline of what you can expect, but it's very, very, very subjective, is that?
Yeah.
But it is a common thing among guitarists that I speak to, whether it be in person or online. It's how am I doing? Mm-hmm. Am I where I should be? And the question is, yes.
Yeah,
all the time. There's so many variables to that. Mm-hmm. Okay, last section then. Pick our brains. Fantasy rig. So I've been watching some other people online who are going through, let's just call it gear sabbaticals at the minute, redesigning the rigs. And I'm currently on the fence about coming out of using my little Fender Princeton and going to the other side, going to Marshall. Ooh. Yes. To be continued. Now, we're not talking super lead, we're talking plexi.
See, that's the thing. I view Marshall as like, that's Gibson's side. You've got two sides in life. You've got Fender and you've got Gibson. Fender guitars go with Fender amps.
I disagree.
Gibson guitars go with Marshall amps. That's just... Now, I know Hendrix,
yeah,
second Marshalls, but that's the way I've always viewed it. But I thought Fantasy Rig was money, no object. Now, you will save to make sure that you buy that plexi.
Yeah.
But what is going in that studio?
Right, okay.
Dream Garage, essentially.
Dream Garage. So I have... do we start with guitars first? Yeah, let's start with guitars. So I have a 1963 pre-CBS, or 1962 or 1963. I have two of them, Stratocasters. I have a Sunburst one with a rosewood board, and I have a Fiesta Red one with a rosewood board.
Sort of Buddy Holly.
No, like more Matt Knopfler.
Knopfler,
yeah.
Right, okay. Would it have like a greeny pick guard?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
It'd be aged, yeah. And then I would have a Les Paul Gold Top, that R7 that I have use of occasionally. And I would have a 100-watt Marshall Plexi on one side and a Fender Super Reverb on the other side. And I would use the Marshall for the distorted tones. I'd use the Fender for the clean tones. And all I would have on the floor is a wah-wah, a tuner, and a tube screamer, and an ABY box. So not a lot. I mean, it's probably like...
We could be here for a long time.
There's 100 grand's worth of gear there. But it's... so that'd be my money, no object. Now, that is hilariously impractical. Mm-hmm. I mean, just in Stratocasters, there's probably 70 grand's worth of
just
Fender
an
Stratocasters
insurance,
there.
it's impractical.
Yeah. But if I were... Let's say that I was drafted in as a guitar player for a famous band and going on tour with them, and I could essentially have the Chili Peppers rang up and said, "James, we need you." What am I loading into the back of the wagon? Yeah. That's what I'm loading into the back of the wagon. What about you?
So I have always lusted...
If you say a Harley Benton Strat and a 2-watt amplifier,
no. I've always lusted after a real custom shop Strat.
Right.
It would be a 62 spec seafoam green. So sort of the colour of that's why I painted my telly that colour. Seafoam green. I want it relicked, lightly relicked, not kicked around the car park, just a couple of scuffs here and there, but lacquered over. So it looks beaten, but it's still smooth. It would have a lacquered headstock neck with a skunk stripe. So the natural sort of finish.
Is it maple or rosewood board?
Maple, 100% maple.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Painted headstock?
No, not on a 62. That's wrong.
Okay.
That's too blingy.
But you'll have a maple neck on a 62.
Yeah.
Okay.
I like the way maple feels.
Right.
As a feel. Pickups, yeah, throwing some Vintera pickups. 62 but yeah, the look is, and then the sort of creamy coloured pick guard and the hardware and silver hardware, obviously. It would just be a big Marshall stack. Not particularly fussed what, because I'm not a tinkerer, but I like instant, and not quite microwave generation, but I'd have a digital platform that I could go, right, I want 80s tone, boom, I'd press a button. I know that's kind of sacrilege. Back to guitars, I would also have a big Gretsch.
Right.
Like a country gentleman, George Harrison kind of, because I do really like the rockabilly stuff. That's why I bought a Gretsch years ago. And I sold it because I didn't get on with the guitar. But yeah, country gentleman or something Brian Setzer-esque. That kind of...
the bigger body,
yeah, the chunky, yeah. Because money's no object, that sort of thing. But I know a Chet Atkins country gentleman is about £4,000.
Is that an old one or a new one?
No, brand new off the shelf.
Right, okay.
It's sort of the burgundy colour.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
I nearly bought one of them from late 50s. I really seriously thought about it. And it had sold before I made my decision. So that's the universe telling me it wasn't the one for me.
Yeah. And also, just a good set of studio monitors. I know it sounds really weird and a bit limp, but like a good set to practice to. Because at home, I've got a bad thing. They're not actually mine, or I use my cheap Bluetooth speaker, but a really good audio system where you can feel it, and you've got just a nice setup.
Yeah, a good set of like Yamaha HS10s or something like that. Okay.
And also just the place to crank these amps up. Because at home I get to volume 2 and I go, no, the neighbours are going to start kicking off.
The vision eventually for this place is that we all have our own office. And that can be your room with your stuff. That's that's what I'm shooting for, because that's one thing I really struggle with at the school is I have a lot of nice equipment here that I do freely let people use, but unfortunately, people don't look after stuff,
no. And they don't mean to mistreat.
Oh no, I've had people damage things intentionally on purpose. That little Princeton over there, somebody's driven a screw into the front plate of it. Yeah. My super lead no longer turns on after leaving it in the room, so it's really hard not to get bent out of shape about that stuff. But I would like to sort of have a little cave that is mine.
Yeah.
And I don't have to worry about having to share that room with other people. And it can just be my studio. I mean, this room's kind of a bit like that, but it's multi-purpose at the minute, you know?
Yeah.
This time next year, Rodders. We'll figure it out.
So
fantasy rigs.
Yeah, we could go on a long time, but I think we have been already.
I think
so. What was your riff of the week from last week before mine this week?
My riff of the week was...
and you have since listened to the Van Halen version.
I have, and do you know what? I think I prefer Roy's version.
Ooh, okay. Oh, yeah, right, yeah, the OG, the classic, is that song, but the Van Halen lends a nice flavour.
When did that come out?
I think it was probably 78.
Right, okay.
Yeah. Or it might have been 84.
It sounds quite, in the Van Halen lineage, it sounds quite new.
It's still Roth, anyway.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's definitely Roth singing. Yeah, it's not Hagar, 5150. Right. It's not that late.
Okay, cool. So what are you going to show us this week, then?
So, to do our riff, we're going back to episode 3. We're in drop D. And I'm just going to turn the booster up on this guitar now, because I need a bit more. This is the riff. Now, we've done a lot of Aussie today,
okay,
so we've got a bit more. Oh, I embarrassed myself. Didn't quite get the pinch harmonic. Not enough gain. But that is No More Tears by Ozzy Osbourne, played by Zakk Wylde. Okay. 1989, I think, that one, or 1990. Yeah, that is the riff. I'll do it one more time. There we go. Still not enough gain.
Right, then. So how are you playing that then, George?
So I'm in drop D. Look to this. Episode 3, as I said, I've tuned my low E string to a D string, which is a power chord.
Yeah.
There we go. You did there. So what am I doing? I'm playing 0 on now. Disclaimer, public service announcement. Every time I play something, I'm playing the low D, the A, and the D string together. I'm playing 0, then I'm playing a 3, and then another 0. And all of this is palm muted. So 0, 3, 0. I'm then going to slide from 5 to 6 with my ring finger, covering those 3 strings again. So after I've done that 5-6 slide, I'm going back to 3 again. And then going to have 5-3, another slide, 5 to 6, back to 5-3 again, and then it finishes after another 5-3 with what we call a pinch harmonic, which is another episode entirely. I think we're going to do one on harmonics. Oh, that was a juicy one.
So, for those that have never heard that before or not really known what that is, just in a sort of like quick 10-second burst, how do you get that squealing noise?
Lots of gain. I don't have enough. What we call a squeal, I'm using my thumb and really narrowing how much pick I'm using. And I'm using my thumb to hit the string. It's like a glorified palm mute on one string.
So you sort of pick the note with your plectrum,
yeah,
but then immediately after, in the same motion, you catch it with the edge of your thumb and it creates an artificial harmonic.
Yep. And metal music, heavy rock. We're definitely going to do an episode on harmonics. It has to be done pinch versus natural. But yeah, this week's riff, have a listen. The song is incredible. It is so. I
go in and out of Ozzy Osbourne. Like sometimes I just I'm really obsessed with it, and then I'll forget about it for months.
It's because it's not like Iommi Osbourne or Rhodes Osbourne. It's got synths, it's got sound effects. Yeah. It's more modern.
Yeah.
Saying that it's 40 years old nearly, but it's just there's so much, and the solo sounds bonkers, but it's all pentatonic as well.
What do you think of Jakey Lee?
Never heard of him.
Bark at the Moon?
No.
You've heard Bark at the Moon, right? Okay, no, so that's George's education.
Yeah,
this week.
So yours was Pretty Woman last week. Yeah. Mine's Bark at the Moon.
Oh, right. You will know it. You will know it. I'll show you. Right then. So,
well, I've got to get back to standard for our jam.
Let's have a little jam. Do you want that? Oh, you're okay.
So yeah, today our set list, we looked at power chords. We then compared Gibson versus Epiphone. Went down a bit of a rabbit hole. Kind of a theme there. When we talk about stuff we like, we go on for hours.
We do.
That's a good sign, I think.
54 minutes so far. I keep checking the time. Yeah. So
then we had our fancy rig after talking about our day in the life at KGS, and then we had No More Tears, Ozzy Osbourne. Have a listen. Then we're gonna jam in F sharp minor today.
F sharp minor.
Yeah.
If my amps switched on. So thank you so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Give me some backing.